Assalamu alaikum everyone. How are you guys? So we are here to discuss our part two of the performance management in appraisals. I am Masroor Soomro, faculty for human resource management, Sukkur University. This lecture is particularly intended for the students of MS PhD deficiency courses, MBA and BBA students. Proceeding towards our previous slide that we left in our last class. So we were discussing about the relevance of performance criteria, and we discussed about what are the various different problems that we have when we are actually developing measures or developing criteria to evaluate the performance. So we sometimes develop a criteria or a measure that is deficient, in which we try to evaluate an employee, but we compensate or we actually compromise three or four areas where employee should be evaluated, but he or she is not evaluated, and he is only evaluated on 4 or 5 dimensions, and rest of his other jobs or rest of his other job activities are actually compromised. Then comes the contaminated measures are the criteria that actually is contaminated. Say, for instance, I am an HR person, but I have been tasked to perform a duty of an accountant or a task of a procurement department. Therefore, I'm specialized in HR, but I don't know, I don't have any experience related to the accounts or accounts department or finance department. I don't have any experience of procurement department or logistics department. So if you are going to evaluate me on that yardstick for that is designed specifically for procurement department, and I being HR professional, I am actually serving there. Therefore, that criteria would be deficient or contaminated. Because I'm a HR person, I should be evaluated on a criteria that is specifically designed for an HR professional. Then comes overemphasize. In this measure, what we do, we actually overemphasize on only one or two areas only, and we actually compensate and neglect the other main duties performed by you as well, or we only keep the recent events that has actually occurred in your professional life, and we actually neglect your yearly other contributions that you have been doing. Moving forward, here we have been given an example how you can develop standards, performance standards. So uh, a demo or a sample form has been given, ACTFL, performance standards for speaking proficiency. So how you are going to evaluate speaking proficiency? So when you are actually going to develop a measure, you have to ensure, as I told you, that performance appraisals are individual based and employee based. Therefore, if we are actually evaluating speaking proficiency, so we have to develop different performance standards, different performance measures for different levels of employees. For example, if I am a novice, I am a new employee, I have recently joined the university after university, and I have joined your company. This is my first job. So obviously my speaking proficiency won't be that good as compared to an intermediate or superior. So you have to wait my proficiency as per the different criteria. So here is the example. So if I am a novice, so my speaking proficiency would be measured on these basic three statements. Can respond to simple questions, whether I am able to answer simple questions, can convey minimal meaning by using isolated words or memorized phrases. I'm a new employee, therefore obviously I have to memorize, I have to keep little bit of ideas or concepts in my mind so that I can at least give a basic information to someone, can satisfy a limited number of immediate needs. So it is the measure, it is a criteria that is developed for a novice, a new employee. But if I am an intermediate employee, so I would be evaluated on a different yardstick. For me, the performance standard will be different. So I am being evaluated on same thing, that is speaking proficiency, but the level and the standards would be different. The statements defining my performance would be different. Can participate in simple conversation. Now, when we were talking about novice, we were actually talking about simple questions. Now we are saying that he can or she can participate in normal simple conversations on predictable topics, can satisfy simple needs to survive in the language cultures, can ask and answer questions easily. And if you are a superior, so obviously the level will be different. Participate fully in conversation, relating to the needs and professional interest. Discuss topics both concretely and abstractly. Can deal effectively with unfamiliar speaking situations. So for a superior, he is an expert. For an intermediate, he is a mediocre. He is he is still learning, but he is not an expert. But neither he is a novice. Therefore, as the level difference differs, so the standards differ. So the yardstick levels differs. So you have to develop performance objectives, goals, or evaluate an employee on a different level, on different measures. Moving forward. Okay, sample terms for defining standards. Okay, when you are actually going to evaluate an employee on these yardsticks, so if you are going to evaluate me as a supervisor, participate fully in conversation relating to the needs and professional interest. So this is the very first point on which I am being evaluated, and you are going to rate me on that first point, either unsatisfactory, below expectations, meet expectation, or exceed expectation, or outstanding. And on the second point, again, second point is discuss. I can discuss both topics concretely and abstractly. So you are going to evaluate me whether I am outstanding on this point, or I am exceeding expectations, or I am meeting expectation. That means I am mediocre, that I am only qualifying, I am only passing, but I do not exceed expectations. Therefore, it's how you are going to develop standards. It's how you are going to develop a yardstick, and it's how you are going to weight the joystick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have different weights for each point, and this weight might be a weighted average as well. So these points would be out of 30, it can be out of 100, depends how you are actually evaluating employee, out of how many marks or out of how many points you are actually evaluating the speaking proficiency of that person. Moving forward, uses of performance appraisals. Okay, where we can use performance appraisal. What are the various information or various useful ways where we can use this information that we have actually gathered and assessed, and now we want to use that information for specific purposes. So there are two types of uses there, and these two types are administrative actions. So you can use that information for taking administrative actions. For instance, you can, I'm sorry, I have to take this call. So just a minute. Okay, so we were discussing about the uses of performance appraisals, where we can use this information gathered through performance appraisal. We can use this information to take administrative actions. For instance, we can take action for a dismissal from a work. We can also take this information or use this information to discipline somebody, disciplinary procedures. We can go for compensation adjustments. We can think about incrementing and decrementing. We can use this information for your promotions and demotions. We can use this information based on your performance. We can think whether we can transfer you in a much more difficult area since you are an expert, or we can think about transferring to a place where you can manage yourself easily because you are a weak employee. Therefore, the area at which you are currently serving is more tough area and we need an experienced person and you are less experienced, therefore we can think about transferring you, since we need an employee who's effective and whose performance is really good in this area. We cannot compromise these areas, so we can use performance appraisal information for various administrative actions. Okay, the second use of this information is developmental use, where we can think about an employee's career progression. We can think about this succession planning, training opportunities, coaching and mentoring, identifying his strengths and weaknesses so that we can develop this person. Remember, as I was discussing in my previous lecture on training and development, that training is not necessary, is only for weak areas. It is for the strong areas as well. If I am strong in one area, the company always actually is eager to train his strong employees so that that strong employee becomes a competitive edge. That competitive employee actually gives the company a leverage over other companies. It creates an edge for the company. Therefore, that is why we actually develop our employees more rigorously. This is where we can use this information. These are the basic two types of usage of performance appraisal information. Moving forward, performance appraisals. Okay, the benefits. What are the benefits of the performance appraisal where we can use this information? Okay, performance appraisal actually increases operational competence. Employees become more competent. They actually provide a competitive edge to the company. Okay, it can also help us in legal compliance. It's a legal requirement of labor laws, labor codes, and we have to abide by within the country's rules and regulations that govern over the companies. Say, for instance, in Pakistan, we have SECP that actually help us for the registration of a corporation, and that also monitors whether we have standard operating procedures to monitor various different activities. So there are certain level laws that we have to follow, and where we use performance appraisals for our strong legal justifications. Moving forward, enhanced corporate growth. Yes, it actually helps us to develop employees for our future requirements and needs, and it helps us enhance the corporate growth of our employees. Heightened transformational processes and performance. This performance appraisals actually help us transform various different processes. We can think about change management if we know where we are having intellectual capital, so how we can leverage that intellectual capital for the development of the organization, how we can improve the employee performance more, how we can change organizational operations, how we can change organizational processes to make the organization more strong and robust. Provide answers to a wide array of work-related questions. How to improve the job? Okay, obviously it provides, as I was discussing in my previous slides, the uses of the performance appraisals, administrative and career developmental uses. Therefore, it answers various other questions as well. Decisions about performance appraisal processes, you have to think about these things when you are actually designing an appraisal system. What would be the appraisal responsibilities? Whether this system is going to be an informal or systematic formal procedures or processes. Timing of the appraisal, how many times you are going to conduct the performance appraisal. Remember, if the company is bigger in size, number of employees is huge, it's in thousands. Say, for instance, my previous organization was Sui Southern Gas Company Limited, Pakistan, the SSGC. So the number of employees there used to be more than 30,000 plus employees. So in order to evaluate 30,000 plus employees, it requires time. So if your company is bigger, you have this activity over a year for one time. But if your company is smaller, number of employees is less, you can take this activity twice a year, or maybe quarterly. That means you can take it 4 times in an year. Depends how frequent your systems are. Okay, generally in sales organizations, the companies that are related to the sales, for instance, if you are talking about P&G, Procter's and Gamble's, if you are talking about Nestle, if you are talking about Unilever, if you are talking about Friesland Campina, that is formerly known as Angro Foods, okay, Allpers Milk, you have to think about the targets. Therefore, these targets are actually evaluated on a regular basis. Generally, these salespeople have their daily routinely meetings about how many targets have been achieved. They have these meetings, weekly meetings. They have their monthly closing meetings about the targets, whether they are achieving the goals or targets or not. Yes or not. Therefore, depends how formal your system is, how centralized your system is, and how decentralized or informal system you are having. Depends how discretionary authority your organization has given to you. Appraisal responsibilities depends up to the managers as well as HR department. Typical division of the HR responsibilities during performance appraisal. So for performance appraisals, HR unit or HR department has certain different duties and responsibilities, whereas operational departmental managers have their own different set of responsibilities in order to actualize the performance appraisals. So let's discuss in detail what kind of activities or responsibilities the HR unit has. Design and maintain appraisal systems. This is the main core duty of the HR department, that they have to devise such mechanisms that actualize the results. We really come closer to the performance of the employees. We come to know about the actual results and then maintain that system. Keep on updating that system, making it more robust, making it more handsome, well organized, coordinated appraisal system. HR managers or HR department's duty is to train the raters, all the supervisors, all the managers, departmental functional managers, how they can use this performance appraisal tool, how they can develop goals and objectives. There are various different kinds of trainings that is actually done by the HR department for the supervisors, unit managers, and all these things. Track timely receipts of performance appraisal. The main duty, another main duty, since if my company is bigger, therefore it's really very uphill task to maintain the timely receipts of performance appraisals. Okay, as I told you, in Swigas and South SSGC, where I used to work previously, there we used to have 30,000 plus employees. And the HR department specifically, if I am talking about the performance management section of the HR department, the number of employees is very much less. There are approximately 10 to 15 employees who actually manage the record of these employees, 30,000 employees. And you have to think about their promotions, demotions. You have to think about their disciplinary actions. You have to think about their increments and decrements. You have to think about the transfers and dismissals as well, based on that information. So it's a really tough job for an HR manager. Therefore, it is sometimes said that if HR managers works, then the HR really works and really hard works, then it is the time when the appraisals are actually performed in year. Therefore, it's one of the tough job for an HR manager. So timely receipts is necessary. Review complete performance appraisal and for consistency is necessary for the HR unit. And what the unit managers has to do, typically rate performance of the employees. They rate their subordinates, prepare formal appraisal documents, prepare the document and send it to the HR department. This is the only responsibility that manager says. And unfortunately, these managers sometimes actually miss their mark. They fail to give the feedback to their employees, and they fail to provide the information needed to the HR department. But it's how the organization sector works. You review appraisals with employees. Okay, the manager actually sits with the employees and tells the employees that this is how you have performed the previous year, and this is your next year's goals and objectives, and this is what we have recommended. We are going to promote you or demote you, we are going to increment you or decrement you, we are going to think about trainings in terms of weakness or strengths, and all these things are actually reviewed with the employee. And if the employee agrees, he will sign the appraisal, and if the employee disagrees, he goes to the HR department, and this activity is referred as review or the conflict. The conflict of interest occurs. The employee says that his boss has been biased, he has been unfair and unjust towards him or her, and therefore it is requested to the HR department to review my performance and bring me to the justice. Identify the development areas. So these are the basic areas and basic responsibilities, typical division of the responsibilities during the performance appraisal. So this was the end of the second part. We shall proceed with the third part with the new topics. Till then, bye bye. Allah Hafiz. We shall meet in our next meeting. So let's end it here.